Today is Monday, April the 15th, 2024, and I'd like to thank this nice young gentleman for his feature on iMessage and Android for 9 to 5 Mac. And what I'd like to ask is if there are any stupid people who have smartphones who would like to become smarter than their phones. If so, continue to watch this video.
Everybody, so you might have seen the headlines already and seen that Apple plans to fully support RCS messaging, which is the rich communication services type of messaging that Android users actually use, so Android users can now rejoice come 2024. So in this video, I want to talk about exactly what that means, what the differences are going to be for both iPhone and non-iPhone users. Are you going to kind of see it on a day-to-day basis? Let's get right into it and leave some comments down below about what you think is going to happen now that RCS is coming and being supported by iPhones. So before we really get started, I do want to break down exactly what the differences were before this new change. And again, this isn't going to take into effect into 2024, they said, and we don't really know what time in 2024. It could be January 1st, it could be December 31st for all we know. But what's funny about this is that this is actually coming out less than 48 hours after Carl Pay from Nothing comes out with their new innovative service, which allows Android users to get the blue bubble and be able to iMessage directly to iPhone users. So that, unfortunately, doesn't really matter at this point anymore. Obviously, the Phone 2 is still going to be able to do that. I was kind of excited because I am a Nothing Phone 2 actually owner, and I wanted to test that out. But now it seems like Apple, to kind of combat that, is now saying that they're going to fully support RCS messaging. And before we get into the weeds of everything, I do want to just kind of break it down in terms of how you would explain this at the family dinner table at Thanksgiving for people that don't really know or care about the technicalities of it. And what it basically means is that now if you're an Android user, you're going to get all the features of iMessage users or iPhone users. So you'll be able to double tap to like a message, be able to get full multimedia messages. You don't no longer going to have those like blurry small videos that show up if you are receiving, a photo or a video from an Android user. And then also you will be able to be part of actual group messaging chats and not actually get a watered down version of what iMessage already provides, ideally in a perfect world. Now, I'm sure there'll be some differences and some nuance, but at the end of the day, basically means that now Android and iPhone messaging now play nice together. So now I do want to get into the nuance a little bit about what this means exactly, and we've heard about this battle for years, right? People on the Android side have always been saying that Apple has been keeping everything in a silo on purpose and making the messaging kind of experience worse on purpose between Android users and iPhone users to kind of keep their walled garden up as high as possible, as to make sure that people don't leave iMessage and go and leave the iPhone and the Apple ecosystem. And for the most part, it's probably one of the top 3, maybe top 2 services that Apple has with their iPhone and Apple ecosystem that keeps people in the walled garden. I would say iMessage, and then things like AirDrop, and then just the whole continuity aspect, being able to copy something from your iPhone and then paste it into your Mac and vice versa, and things along those lines. But iMessage was definitely up there, especially for here in America, where I believe it was 83 or 87% of teenagers own iPhones, which is absolutely absurd. So if you go into a high school, 8 or 9 out of 10 of kids are going to have an iPhone, where 1 is only going to have an Android phone. And we've seen that escalate all the way to bullying and things like that, where like people get excluded because they have Android phones. People aren't going on dates because they have Android phones versus an iPhone. But hopefully this does fix things. But let's get into the nuance a little bit and talk about exactly what this means.
All right, I'd like to just pause here for a second, especially because we're referencing teenagers. And you know that when it comes to kids, that's a special irritant for me when technology, government, or the education system are working together to disrupt their healthy development and understanding of what is really important and what is valuable. So I would like for you to consider how smart your phone is versus how smart you are, and how similar the way that the iPhone and Android, he uses the term garden walls, exist, and whether or not you can identify other areas of our lives as we function in America where the same pattern occurs. The challenge, though, is for parents to acknowledge and recognize how they are using technology to help our kids segregate themselves from each other, and what needs to happen. Let's continue on.
like that where like people get excluded because they have Android phones. People aren't going on dates because they have Android phones versus an iPhone. But hopefully this does fix things. But let's get into the nuance a little bit and talk about exactly what this means. So the current state of the messaging between Android and iPhone is kind of broken right now because the experience isn't that great overall, right? You still kind of rely on the old SMS and MMS protocol when going between Android and iPhone, which is where MMS stands for short messaging service, which has been around for, I want to say 2-3 decades now at this point. And then MMS was kind of the evolution of that, which was the multimedia messaging services, which allowed you to send more than just text. But that again is a very old protocol. So whenever somebody does send a video or a photo and they send it over to an iPhone, then it's going to be very broken and it's going to be very pixelated and it's not going to be the full quality because this is not meant to carry that much data at the end of the day. And then as iMessage has evolved, like if you wanted to double tap to like a actual message or kind of reply in a thread, if there was an Android user in that thread or an Android user that was trying to see that their message was liked, you would see it kind of in quotations that it would say like your message, that said, hi, what's up, was liked by Fernando Silva or something along those lines. So again, it was a very broken experience. So then what Google wanted to do was push this RCS. So RCS stands for Rich Communication Systems, or
All right, so here's my question. Why do we need iMessage? Now, I appreciate that some people, like myself, who do not have data plans but still have their phones that can access Wi-Fi, having iMessage allows them to continue to use a texting feature in order to stay in touch with other iPhone users. But the majority of people in 2024 have some sort of data plan because of the government's push towards expanding broadband and offering discounts and free phones for people who cannot afford them, and also for internet service in your home. So they really are trying to cover everyone to make sure that everybody is carrying a phone. And if you've watched this channel for more than 5 minutes, you know that I have clearly outlined why this is necessary for the Department of Defense. But what I'd like for you to do is, if you would like to be smarter than your phone, is to complete the Saturday morning assignment that I posted about iMessaging specifically. Because if you have text messaging, then why aren't you using it? That really doesn't make any sense to me. So if you complete the assignment and are able to present a convincing argument for why it's even needed, then I'm open to hearing that. But from my perspective, it's just another problem that interferes with the communication between people, especially kids who may have their data plans disrupted, depending on who's paying for it and how much the service fees are, and whether they're consistent or whether they fluctuate. So please take all of these things into consideration, because I need for you all to be smarter than your smart devices. Don't you want to be?